And greetings gamers, and welcome back to Let's Play the History of the Three Kingdoms. Well, I tallied the votes and it was more or less unanimous. Basically almost all of you voted 196 AD. So now we turn to round 2 of the voting, where we decide who we will be playing as, which faction. As you can see, there's a lot of them, so this will be relatively brief, but I will go into detail about my thoughts about each character, and etc, etc. Now, a thing to note in this game is there is a line of succession when some leaders, most notably Lu Bu, for example, he is both a leader and an actual hero in the game that can lead troops into battle, etc. That's a feature. Think of him as a great general, if you're thinking base, vanilla, Civilization 4. Now, what this means is that he can die in battle. And when a leader dies in battle, there's a succession. Generally, for example, if Cao Cao dies, Cao Pi takes over, and so on and so forth. And the thing is, though, you can't see it here, but as you imagine, each faction has several leaders you can pick, and the best way to do this is to check the play now thing. But in a nutshell, if we start with Cao Cao and Cao Cao dies, Cao Pi takes over, and Cao Pi has his own special traits. So in that regard, it's kind of fun. For example, I know with the Sun clan, and since this is the conquest of Wu, we still have Sun Ce still alive. For example, it's always nice to start with Sun... what's his name? Not Sun Quan, not Sun Ce, the guy before, Sun Jian. There we go. Almost lost it there. It's actually good to start with the father, because I forget if one of his skills I remember is actually really good to start off with, and he generally dies quite early on, and when he dies you get Sun Ce. And Sun Ce has abilities which I will talk about later, but they're very good in mid-game or once you have an actual base set up. But anyway, let's get it on with the actual thing. So here we have the Cao clan with Cao Cao at the helm. He is philosophical, so I can boost out the great people, which is kind of nice. Charismatic, always nice to have extra happiness in a city. And agriculture. Agriculture is actually the best thing you can have. Due to his actual location on the map. There are quite a few plains where you can build farms. It becomes very, very useful. If you combine it with the whip exists, you can produce a lot of shit. And when you combine it with the actual Wei Cao clan special attribute, the faction trait is talent, all great specialists produce more. So when you add the philosophical trait, you get great specialists 100%, and they actually produce more. I think it's like double. So you can actually get quite a lot of stuff. Unique units, Xinchu rebels, they're conscript halberdiers, and you know, they've got some nice buildings. Liu Bei. Liu Bei is expansive, which is kind of nice, charismatic, and iron-willed. Automatically converts to revival when any player founds it. Revival automatically spreads to half the cities when converted to it. Newly built or acquired cities automatically get revival if it's state religion. Now, revival is, think of it as a religion. The way this game works is you don't have religions, you have ideologies. And basically Liu Bei, quite famously, wanted to restore the Han dynasty. And that's what revival is. You want to restore the Han. When you compare it to Cao Cao's and most other people's ideology, which was unification, which was unite the entire land under yourself as the supreme ruler. And that way you get quite a few things like that. Anyway, his special abilities. He's benevolent, so he has no resistance in captured cities. You don't have revolts when you capture them. Assimilate half the culture points when you capture a city, and buildings in conquered cities more likely to survive. So you don't have to rebuild every single building in the cities. Quite useful for early game expansion, I will admit, because generally when you're in late game expansion, generally the countryside is built, so you have towns, you have mines. So those early buildings will only take a turn, 2 turns maximum to rebuild. It's not that hard to do, but it's quite a nice thing. His unique units are the Swift Elites, Tiger Swordsman, Supreme Ballista, which is the repeating ballista famously made by Zhou Yu. And he's got public baths and an altar. Now we get down to the Sun clan. Sun clan is led by Sun Ce, who is financial. So you get +1 gold on plots with 2 gold. And that's basically all the ocean tiles. So that's very useful for Wu, as you would expect. It's charismatic, of course. And he has War God. You can train Danyang armies without Danyang. Now I'll explain what that is. Danyang basically is a special resource you obtain by building a specific wonder. And what it allows you to build are Danyang troops. Danyang troops are the strongest units in the game. Thrown out there. Some people might agree, some people might disagree. What they are basically... they come in 3 varieties, of course. They come in, copper, iron, and I think there's one more at the end, like supreme one. But what they do is, they can walk on water. So in a nutshell, they can, like cross ocean, well not oceans obviously, but like across the sea, and basically conquer cities quite easily like that. And they are extremely powerful. I very much like the Wu faction in this game because of it. With their assault ships and their unique building, the river harbor and seawall, they actually help a lot when it comes to commerce and things, and really suits my playstyle. So there you go. Then we have Yuan Shao. Yuan Shao, he is financial, organized, which is very handy, and imperialistic. So he gets +100 combat point accumulation and 50% faster production of settler. Now because you chose this scenario, the settler bonus is useless because you can't produce them. However, the 100 point accumulation thing is useful for acquiring heroes. That's right, the way this game works is the more you fight, the more points, action combat points you accumulate. And it's using these points that you either promote heroes within your own ranks, or you get special discounts when buying, famous heroes that are actually out there. So that's very handy. Of course, depending on the faction, you start with various heroes. Like Liu Bei obviously starts with himself, Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei. And if my mouse would stop beeping, that would be fun. His faction trait, he's famous. Other players more willing to become vassals. Very handy. Less frequent unpleasant diplomatic demands from other players. Again, if you've ever played with AI, you know they will generally fucksnap and ask you outrageous things that you won't possibly accept. This basically prevents that and prevents the negative repercussion of relations due to that. He has the Yuan Manor as an underground jail and Zizhu Crossbowman. Yes, my pronunciations in this game will be hilarious. Next, Liu Biao. We're only at the 5th people, folks. This is going to be a long video. Liu Biao, he is creative and protective. And in a nutshell, he has culture, so when at peace, all cities +100% culture. In a nutshell, what you want to do with Liu Biao is go for a culture victory. There is no other way to do it. You're not going to expand with him. You have 3 or 4 cities, you want to stay with them and just work the culture until you basically win everything forever. With the protective trait to help you out with this, to defend your cities, and the creative, obviously, to help your culture increase even more, it's really the only option for Liu Biao. Next we have Yui Zhang. Yui Zhang, of course, is in the kingdom of Shu, and therefore his things relate to this. He is spiritual, so he has no anarchy when switching civics. Very useful, actually, considering the civics you get in this game. Sometimes it really helps to just switch them on the fly, because sometimes you need to pinch hit one of those things. And he's also got a protective himself, therefore he can, defend his cities easier. He has Guerrilla, which basically allows all peak plots yield 1 food and 2 hammers. Now peak plots of course are mountains, and being in Zhou, that area there are a lot of mountains. So basically this allows him to get a few extra workable tiles where there wouldn't be any, where there would be nothing generally. Not that insanely useful when you look at where his cities are actually placed, but it comes in handy. He also gets a free promotion Guerrilla 1 and Guerrilla 2 for his recon, archery and melee units. That is a lot better. Next, Martang. Martang, he's aggressive, he's got a free promotion combat 1 to mounted and melee units, and he's also protective. Basically, Martang is a warrior, and his traits relate as such. He has mounted units receive defensive bonus. In a nutshell, if you've ever played Civ 4, you know that mounted units can't fortify in cities. What his faction trait allows is essentially that. When in a city, they will get the the defensive bonus, I mean. So really, with Martang, he's a warring sort of guy. Next we have Yuan Shu. Yuan Shu is expansive, and he's also imperialist like his brother. His faction trait is Emperor. You start with the Emperor Civic, and you start with -4 attitude with all other players. With the AI, basically you start at war with Liu Bei, I know that for a fact. And maybe Liu Bu? No, okay, it's only Liu Bei, that's right. Who famously finished him off, of course, after Cao Cao ordered him to. So yeah, he's not that great, considering all the negative traits you get if you play on any sort of difficulty. Starting with a -4 attitude, and you're sort of in the middle of the map, yeah, you can get ganged really easily, considering you're next to Cao Cao and Liu Bei, 2 of the major powers. Next we have Zhang Lu. Zhang Lu is spiritual, so I've already discussed that, and agricultural. That's not even a word. Which I approve of, I have said before. What he does is, a healthy city may gain immigration. The happier the city, the better the chance. Basically what he means is, if you have healthy cities, which is actually very easy because of 1 civic, that you might see in the next video that I'll illustrate when I go through the Civilopedia. Or, no, I'm not going to do that video, screw it, you'll discover it on the day. He gains population, he gains like an extra pop. It's a random event, essentially, if you have healthy cities. Not insanely useful, but you know, it has its purpose. Next we have Gongsun Zan. Gongsun Zan, he starts in a relatively hard position on the map. He starts between 2 enemies, Gongsun Du and Yuan Shao. Obviously one is more powerful than the other, and I have managed to actually hold my own against Yuan Shao, playing as him. But I obviously haven't finished a game yet in this thing, because I like to play on epic speed, which I won't be doing. I'll be playing on normal speed, which might change a few things, I don't know. You know, he's philosophical, so he's got the +100 birth rate. As I've said, that is actually very useful. And he's aggressive, so he can actually wage war quite as well. And his special trait is because he has the famous White Riders, he has mounted units ignore city defense caused by buildings. Essentially, walls are useless against him. Very, very useful for taking cities, because in a nutshell, you don't need to build siege equipment. You can just charge in with your horsemen, the White Horse Cavalry, and you can basically rush the game quite early on. Very, very useful for early expansion, not so much near the end. Next, Lu Bu. He is of course aggressive, as everyone knows, and greedy, -2 happiness, +3 gold per city. Now at start you might think that's kind of annoying, but when you basically you'll have a very hard start, because you'll basically run into the anger issues related to that -2 happiness. However, there are many ways to offset that, and the +3 gold really can come in handy. Now, his faction trait is tough. All units are stronger in attacking while weaker in defending. Myself being sort of, I like to play on the defensive rather than the offensive. So, here I never felt the appeal of playing as him, in all honesty. That trait, I don't know whether it has a real impact on the combat. Knowing this game, it possibly does. And you start at war with Cao Cao. Not a good place to be. No, no. I'm sure you're aware of that. And I think Liu Bei hates your ghosts as well. Next we have Gong Sun Du in the Liao East territory. He is expansive and creative. Considering he has quite a few plots on the water, that production speed of Harbour and Huge Harbour is very, very useful. Another thing that I like about him, he's a recluse, which means non-adjacent players cannot declare war on you if diplomatic relations is not extremely bad. In essence, people who are not directly next to you, next to your cultural borders, cannot attack you, cannot declare war on you. That is extremely useful when you're, like, for example, going for a culture victory, which his creative stats allow for. His main opposition comes in the form of Gongsun Zan, who may attack him unless you do some sort of deal with him to help him against Yuan Shao. But you may wish to attack Gongsun Zan and basically vassal him at the earliest opportunity to give you a buffer against him. Next we have Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang, he's industrious, of course, very nice for wonder whoring, and charismatic. He has Foreigner as his faction trait. You gain a free nomad camp on game start. A nomad camp may sprawl new camp when set up on cow, pig or sheep. Nomad camp may sprawl Xianbei ethnic horseman when set up on horse or purebred horse. In essence, he has a special unique thing called a nomad camp, which think of it like a worker that basically works on a thing permanently and gives you increased yield in that area. So kind of useful. His location on the map is something to be desired, but you know, he's a decent sort of person. Next we have Yu Yao. Yu Yao, he's got spiritual and organized. Not necessarily bad. When he gains a free renowned scholar when founding a belief. The problem with that is all the beliefs are already founded at the start of this campaign. In essence, his trait is useless, therefore making him quite useless. Next we have Kong Rong. Kong Rong, he's kind of very nice actually, because he gets the plus 100% birth rate, he's got the creativity as well, and in essence, the thing to note in this game is you don't have the United Nations, you have the Emperor. The person who holds the Emperor, in this case Cao Cao, can declare things to vote on, whether it be peace things, whether it be whatever. Now what Kong Rong allows you is to have a plus 25% to diplomatic votes. In essence, you have an edge on everyone else when it comes to votes. That can be very useful when they try to, you know, fuck you over, essentially. He also has half the chance of spies being intercepted. Now, I don't play often with spies, but I do know how to use them, and if I do play as Kong Rong, I will be using them quite a bit, but I will be more or less abusing the philosophical and creative traits, because I am sort of a creative whore when it comes down to it. Next we have Wang Lang. Who I quite like, because he can plus 50% wonder production, and he's got the financial trait. The problem with Wang Lang is he doesn't come out well in this scenario. If you start and play freestyle mode, he's actually quite useful because of his faction trait, which is educative, which is free science buildings at corresponding city levels. In essence, the more your city grows, they'll automatically build libraries, universities. That's it, essentially, but in essence you don't have to worry about building those things, which can come in handy. Basically, one thing less to build. It's like building Stonehenge at the start of the game. You don't have to worry about building monuments anymore, or you don't have to worry about building lighthouses anymore, stuff like that. It can come very handy when you have to concentrate on building, you know, warriors to defend your kingdom, for example, stuff like that. But like I said, in this thing, not too bright. Next we have the Pass West faction, basically the remnants of or part of the remnants of Dong Zhuo's forces. He is aggressive and organized, and his trait relates as such because he is a tyrant, plus 25% production when sacrificing population. In essence, when you whip, you get plus 25% production. As someone who likes to use the whip, that's not bad. It's kind of useful. Now we have the other half of the Dong Zhuo duo, which is Zhang Yu, who is also a tyrant, plus 25 production. Same things, except he is aggressive and agricultural. I can never say that word, agriculture. In essence, I prefer Zhang Yu over Li Ju, because I prefer agriculture over organized. Essentially because of their placement on the map. I feel that Zhang Yu has an easier time at things. Okay, almost there, folks. Almost there. How long is this video going on for? Next, we have the Haitian bandits. Haitian bandits, we have Zhang Yan. He's industrious and productive. The thing to note with everyone who I've said is industrious is they will never be able to build wonders because of Cao Cao, more or less. Because Cao Cao starts the game off with the most cities. As you all know, the more cities you have, the more powerful you are. And Cao Cao starts with a decent army to boot. So he can basically ruffle stomp over most of these people. And he will. Trust me, he will. Anyway, he gets the raiding promotion, so almost all his units get the rogue promotion. And that's about it. Not much to say about him. He starts in the middle of the map. I wouldn't suggest starting as him. Next we have Yang Feng with the White Wave Army. Basically the remnants of the Yellow Turbans. Now he starts with creative and organized, creative good, organized relatively good as well. He starts at peace and open border with barbarians, which means you don't have to worry about barbarian attacks, which is nice. He also starts with Su Huang, which is a decent hero. But this is the thing that really clinches it for him, is he gains combat points whenever a barbarian unit survives from combat. Essentially, you don't need to wage war to gain combat points, and therefore you can actually acquire heroes, lots of heroes, via just the course of time, because barbarians will just spout out every now and then, and if you know, the AI will do a decent job of killing them, and therefore you can just gain heroes that way. Their unique units, of course, are Yellow Turban Rebels, and they have the totem of Yellow Turban. Thing to note though, he starts with 2 cities, and Cao Cao is at war with him and takes Liu Yang. Essentially, in the first 2 turns, if you don't manage to ninja Liu Yang back, it's game over. You can't survive. So that would be, I have started, I did do it once, where I managed to do it, but I was last. Well, I was, you know, I got quite high, but I was in the middle of the road. I was nowhere near Cao Cao's level at all, and I was nowhere near beating him at any stage of the game. So that could prove interesting. Next we have Han Sui, the sort of ally to Ma Teng. He is expansive, so kind of nice, and protective. He also shares the same bonus as Ma Teng, because they're sort of, you know, 2 sides of the same coin. So mounted units receive defensive bonuses as well. He also has the tribal pikemen and the tribal cavalry, as well as the nomadic pastures. Basically, he's like Ma Teng, except with different traits. Next we have the Shan Yu ethnic group. I forget who these guys really are, actually. I think they're sort of south of Liu Biao? I could be mistaken. They might... No, I think they're north. Yeah, I think they're next to, between Yuan Shao and Ma Teng. Could be mistaken, I have no idea. You can chop down jungle to produce hammers, you can chop down forest to produce more hammers. You have a higher forest and jungle spread within your cultural border, so you can basically just chop shit out. He is also organized and protective. Once again, traits that are okay, not my cup of tea, to be honest with you. Finally, Lui Chong, the last of the Luis, I think. He is charismatic and protective. He also has the faction trait of engineer. All crossbowmen gains extra first strikes. Not the best of traits, I'll be honest with you. Because he has Chen's crossbowman as a unique unit though, you will be using his faction trait quite a bit. It's not a wasted trait. Come down to the Southern Barbarians now, with Menghuo, of course, of the Namnan. And he is aggressive and industrious, as you would expect of a man such as he. What he allows is basically +1 food, +1 hammer with jungles, and jungles won't incur bad health. Now, while in the basic civ that might be useful, because of one civic, which I have noted before, bad health due to is not really a problem in this game. You'll see why when we start the game. And he also has the free promotion Woodsman 1, Woodsman 2, which will allow you to have a home field advantage against any force you might face. Next we have the Zhangba Mount Tai group, who is actually, I quite like playing as them. They're my second favorite to play as after Gongsun Du, because he's aggressive and financial, not traits I particularly like, but in a, you start basically in this scenario vassal stated to Liu Bei. So if you play on his good side, he will give you quite a bit of tech to boost you back up among the big boys. You also start with +4 attitude with all other players, which is insanely useful on staying on their good side, and once again having them donate shit to your cause. You can also become vassal when you're controlled by the human. In essence, I can become a vassal of Cao Cao, have him give me all his shit, and then cancel capitulation peacefully, and then, you know, basically rebel against him. Very, very useful. Also, the Mount Tai bandits, professional halberdiers, no slouches either. So they're very good. Finally, we have Xi. Xi is, I like playing as him in the freestyle mode, not so much in the scenario mode. Basically because he's sort of isolated from everyone. He's at the southern tip of China. He's basically here. You can behind the screen here, but he's at the bottom. To expand wise, I don't even think there are any cities free between them unless they're controlled by barbarians. So you'll have a lot of problem with barbarians early on. However, his faction trait of trader plus 20% food, 10 hammers, 25% gold, from trade routes. In addition to his taxation house and exchange, his unique buildings allow for quite a lot of bonuses to be had with trade. So as long as you have good relations, generally with Wu, because they're the only people you come into contact with, maybe Yu Biao as well, you can have a good time. So there we go, folks. Those are all the people. I know that a lot to choose. If there's a tie, I might choose my own one to pick, or I might throw it out again. If you have any questions before voting, please ask me. I will answer them, no problem, if it helps you make your decision. Obviously, I want you to be informed as much as possible when making these decisions. So there we go. Vote now. Just doing all these again. So, got the Cao clan, Liu Bei faction, the Sun clan, Wan Shao faction, the Jingzhou faction, the Yizhou faction, the Yangzhou faction, the Yuan Shu faction, Rice Taoism faction, Gongsun Zan faction, Lu Bu faction, Yao East faction, Zhang Yang faction, Yu Yao faction, Gong Rong faction, Wang Lang faction, Past West faction, Zhang Xiu faction, the Haitian Bandits, the White Wave Army, Han Sui faction, Shan Yu ethnic group, Yui Chong faction, the Southern Barbarians of the Namnan, Mount Tai group, and finally the Xiaozhu faction. So vote for one of these guys, and we'll have to see, you know, if who's good or not. We'll see. So I'll possibly leave it a week again, depending on things, depending on how the votes progress. This, you know, I put this out honestly after like 4 days because the vote was just so astronomical for 196 AD. I thought, you know, even if everyone votes to the opposite now, the majority of people want it anyway. That's why I brought this video forward. So anyway, don't forget to vote, obviously. And until next time, folks, where we start the game proper. Until then, Lu Bu, for example, he is both a leader and an actual hero in the game that can lead troops into battle, etc. That's a feature. Think of him as a great general, if you're thinking base, vanilla, Civilization 4. Now, what this means is that he can die in battle. And when a leader dies in battle, there's a succession. Generally, for example, if Cao Cao dies, Cao Pi takes over, and so on and so forth. And the thing is, though, you can't see it here, but as you imagine, each faction has several leaders you can pick. And the best way to do this is to check the play now thing. But in a nutshell, if we start with Cao Cao and Cao Cao die, all great specialists produce more. So when you add the philosophical trait, you get great specialists 100%, and they actually produce more. I think it's like double. So you can actually get quite a lot of stuff. Unique units, Zinchu rebels, their conscript halberdiers, and they've got some nice buildings. Liu Bei. Liu Bei is expansive, which is kind of nice, charismatic, and iron-willed. Automatically converts to revival when any player founds it. Revival automatically spreads to half the cities when converted to it. Newly built or acquired cities automatically get revival, which I will talk about later, but they're very good in mid-game or once you have an actual base set up. But anyway, let's get it on with the actual thing. So here we have the Cao clan with Cao Cao at the helm. He is philosophical, so I can boost out the great people, which is kind of nice. Charismatic, always nice to have extra happiness in a city. And agriculture. Agriculture is actually the best thing you can have due to his actual location on the map. There are quite a few plains where you can build farms. It becomes very, very useful. If you combine it with the whip exists, you can produce a lot of shit. And when you combine it with the actual Wei Cao clan special attribute, the faction trait is talent. Cao Pi takes over, and Cao Pi has his own special traits. So in that regard, it's kind of fun. For example, I know with the Sun clan, and since this is the conquest of Wu, we still have Sun Ce still alive. For example, it's always nice to start with Sun... what's his name? Not Sun Quan, not Sun Ce, the guy before, Sun Jian. There we go. Almost lost it there. It's actually good to start with the father, because I forget, if one of his skills I remember is actually really good to start off with, and he generally dies quite early on, and when he dies you get Sun Ce, and Sun Ce has ability. And greetings gamers, and welcome back to Let's Play the History of the Three Kingdoms. Well, I tallied the votes, and it was more or less unanimous. Basically almost all of you voted 196 AD. So now we turn to round 2 of the voting, where we decide who we will be playing as, which faction. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of them, so this will be relatively brief, but I will go into detail about my thoughts about each character, and etc, etc. Now, a thing to note in this game is there is a line of succession when some leaders, most notably